Hello everyone! Today we're going to be talking about goal setting and problem solving. So if you're going to take some notes, now's a good time to grab that piece of paper and a pencil and we're going to get started. During our past lessons, we have been talking about feelings, friendships, and a lot of other things. But today we're going to talk about problem solving and goal setting. Let's start by talking about the word problem. The word problem can mean a lot of different things. For example, problem can mean something that makes people feel upset. People may feel sad, angry, or lonely, or may even have hurt feelings when there's a problem. When someone has upset feelings, we say that person has a problem. But not all problems make us feel upset. Sometimes a problem makes us feel confused. Sometimes we have a problem because we have to choose between two things that we want to do. For example, I would have a problem if I wanted to go swimming with one friend and I wanted to go to a movie with another friend at the same time. Sometimes we say we have a problem when we need to figure something out, like a math problem. It's important to understand that everyone has problems. You have problems, I have problems, we all have problems. We know that we have a problem when we feel confused or when we have a difficult decision to make. So today we're going to talk about how to identify a problem so that we can figure out a way to fix it. And through fixing the problem, we will hopefully learn how to set a goal. In order to identify a problem, we have to make sure that we are calm so that we can think. Before we try to identify a problem, we should always tell ourselves to stop and take a long, deep breath so that we are calm and we can think clearly. When we have a problem, there are some important things we need to think about in order to identify that problem. The first step is to ask ourselves, is there a problem? Then the second step is to say, what is the problem? So how do we know when we're having a problem? Well, let's think about ourselves. What kinds of things do we feel when we have a problem? Do we feel upset or confused? When something is bothering us or troubling us? When we are in a difficult situation? Or when someone is upset with us and they tell us? Or maybe when we feel like we need to help or get some advice about something? After we've identified a problem, we need to think to ourselves, what is the problem? Sometimes that can be a really easy answer. For example, if I said that there would be no more recess for the whole rest of the school year, and you felt upset about that, it would be really easy to identify the problem and to identify why you were feeling upset. But many problems are not that easy to identify. Sometimes we have a problem, but we don't know what it is until we collect a lot of information about it. For example, sometimes we think that something is wrong, but we don't know what it is. If we can think carefully and ask ourselves questions, then we can often identify that problem. And once we've identified the problem, we can go on and say the actual problem and how it makes us feel. Now, let's practice identifying some problems. Okay, let's start with this picture. Here are two boys named Freddie and Alberto. Let's say that we've already finished the first step of deciding that there is a problem. Now, let's try to figure out what the problem is. Let's start by taking the problem from Alberto's point of view. Look carefully at what is happening in the picture. Maybe the problem is that Alberto is hungry and he didn't pack any lunch today. Or maybe he would rather have Freddie's lunch. It's important to remember that everyone can interpret or identify problems in a different way. Or maybe Alberto's upset because Freddie stole his lunch. You can see that when there's a problem situation, we can look at what is happening and we can try to identify the problem. But sometimes, even when we look carefully at all of the clues, we can't actually be sure what the problem really is. It would help if Alberto could tell us exactly what the problem is. Now, let's think about what Freddy's problem might be. Maybe Freddy doesn't want to share his lunch with Alberto, but Alberto wants him to. Maybe Freddy feels guilty about eating lunch in front of Alberto when Alberto didn't bring his lunch. Freddy also has a problem with taking things that don't belong to him, such as Alberto's sandwich. So, maybe he took it. I want you to notice how the same situation can be a different kind of problem for the different people that are involved. And sometimes a situation can make us feel confused. We might not actually be able to tell what's going on or what the problem is. One way we can get confused is when sometimes we think things look a certain way, but they actually don't. Unless we check out the situation very carefully, we might get confused because it looked a bit different. If you've ever gone to a magic show, when the magician did a trick, what was one of the reasons that you could not figure out what happened and you just felt confused and surprised? One reason is because the magician went so fast that you couldn't even see the trick. So going too fast can cause us to feel confused. Sometimes we can think too fast. We think we know what the problem is even when we don't. Some of you might have thought too fast about the situation between Alberto and Freddy. Sometimes we can make mistakes or we don't understand because we go too fast. If this happens, we need to slow down so that we can avoid the mistakes. Another reason it might be hard to figure out how a magician did a trick is because we have a different point of view. For example, if we stood behind the magician, we might see more about how the trick is actually done. So it's important to remember that all of us get confused sometimes. When we feel confused, our feelings are giving us a signal that we need to slow down and think carefully and look at our problem, what's happening, and then we can try to figure things out. So sometimes we can get confused because of the way things look. They just look different to us. And sometimes we can get fooled or confused because we think things look one way, but we haven't looked carefully enough. It's very important to be a good observer. Sometimes we need to act like a detective and think about all of the reasons why something might have happened. Detectives carefully gather evidence before coming to a conclusion. If we think back to the situation between Alberto and Freddy, at the first glance, you might have assumed that Alberto was mad because Freddy took his sandwich. But the further we looked into it, it was a little bit more clear that maybe Alberto didn't bring a sandwich that day. We have to gather all of the evidence before making a conclusion or identifying an actual problem. The better we are at identifying the real problem, the better our solution will be. And that leads me into the next part of our lesson today. We're going to talk about goal setting. And you can think of a goal as kind of like a solution to a problem. I want you to think for a second, what is a goal? Well, I just said you can kind of think of a goal as a solution to a problem. And a goal is also something that we want to happen. A goal is something we hope will happen. When we have a goal, we try to reach it. A goal is the result or achievement towards which effort is directed. Wow, that's a big definition, huh? Think of it this way. It's something good that happened because of a plan that you put in place and the effort that you put forth. When we set a goal, we usually try really hard to make it happen. I'm going to show you a couple pictures, and you can think about what the goal might be for the people in the picture. Let's talk about this one together. If I were to guess the goal for the people in this picture, I would say that they are going to try to win a basketball game. And you might have thought of something different that could be their goal, and that's okay. When we talk about making a goal or setting a goal, we can use the SMART method. SMART. The S stands for specific. You want your goal to be direct, detailed, and meaningful. The M stands for measurable. Your goal should be measurable. You should be able to track your goal and the progress towards your success. The A is for attainable. Your goal needs to be realistic, and you need to already have the tools and the resources to reach your goal. The R means relevant. Your goal needs to matter to you. And the T stands for time-based. You need to think about when do you want to accomplish your goal by. It's important to think about goals when we have a problem because that helps us decide what to do and how to solve our problem. So when should somebody set a goal? When there is a problem that needs to be solved, or when something needs to be changed. That's a good time to set a goal. And just remember, we should be setting positive goals. Setting a positive goal means that our problem will have the best ending possible. So there are types of goals. There are short-term goals and there are long-term goals. Short-term goals are typically met within a few days or weeks, and a long-term goal typically will grow from a short-term goal, and they are accomplished over quite a long period of time, so maybe months or years. An example of a short-term goal would be to practice a math question every day after school for 1 week. And an example of a long-term goal would be to get an A in math class this year. Now you have a chance to practice setting positive short-term goals. Look at the problem and then decide between the two options which one is the most positive. I just want you to remember that goals can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Goals might not always work out exactly like you planned. You will have to learn how to be adaptable. Adapting your plan to reach your goal will be a lot easier if you stick to the SMART method for planning. We're just about done here, but to review, I want you guys to remember that goals can be long-term or short-term, and when you're planning your goal, try to remember to use the SMART method. And just in case you forgot, a goal can be the same thing as a solution to a problem. So before we're done here, I want you to think of a goal that you can create for yourself. What is something that you can make better for yourself in your life? I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me.